Always find joy in the smallest of things. That is what we found in you. Oh, 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 you are joy. Never give up when the going gets rough. Hope is everything you need. Oh, 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 you are hope. Oh, 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 you are hope. And don't forget you're not alone. The Holy Spirit wants to guide you on.
I'm Renae Vania-Tomczak, President and CEO of Mental Health America of Greater Houston. I have worked in the mental health industry for about 10 years, and as most people who work in mental health have very personal reasons for this. Family members who have experienced mental health concerns, and I'm proud to be a part of the solution and getting resources to those who need the resources. At Mental Health America of Greater Houston, our work is driven by providing community solutions to promote mental health for all. Much of our work is as a convener of partners to shift conditions that hold problems in place. The work of Mental Health America is rooted in the philosophy of before stage 4. What that means is when someone is diagnosed with cancer or heart disease, we immediately take action to treat those symptoms to reduce the progression of these diseases. Like other diseases that I've mentioned, it is critical we do the same with behavioral and mental health concerns to put people on a path to overall wellness. In addition to our overarching work in education and advocacy, we work collaboratively in 3 primary areas. With treatment courts to serve justice-involved veterans so they can return to home and to health. With physical and mental health entities, we work to integrate care to serve the whole person. And our Center for School Behavioral Health is working with administrators, teachers, counselors, and other student-facing people to recognize behavioral health concerns. We then provide technical assistance and training to support the well-being of all students. While our general geography is the Greater Houston area, we have taken our expertise in dealing with the mental health impact of natural disasters, particularly those on children, to serve the communities of Puerto Rico, Florida, and the Virgin Islands. I encourage everyone who may be concerned about their own mental health to take a mental health screening through our website at mhahouston.org. It's the easiest way to begin what many see as a difficult process to share that you have a concern with others. It's free and confidential, and you can print it to start the conversation with a loved one or a doctor.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jamie Freeny. I am the Director for the Center for School Behavioral Health at Mental Health America of Greater Houston. The mission of the center is to transform education systems to meet the mental and cognitive and behavioral health needs of students, of all students. We know that academic performance is influenced by mental wellness, and so we want to do as much as we can in order to transform systems to meet the needs of all of their students. We have a profound professional development arm, which we train school counselors and mental health professionals on topics such as trauma, youth suicide prevention, trauma-informed classrooms, children's mental health, and educator self-care, because we understand how important it is for educators to be able to recognize signs and symptoms of mental illness, approach students and families, and refer for services. Our goal is to enable all students to be able to have the support that they need in order to achieve and to perform well in the classroom and outside of the classroom. We understand that it takes a village. It takes a lot of people working together, and so we are a convener. We have a collaborative that is made up of many stakeholders across the greater Houston area that come together to talk about topics around accessing mental health, training and professional development related to mental health, and equity and the disparities that are existing among students of racial and ethnic background that tell us that mental health is an issue, but not all students are seeking the services they need when they need it. So our School Behavioral Health Collaborative has been convening since 2012 and working to transform school districts through policy on the larger level so that the impact comes from the top down, as well as working directly with school districts and campuses to set up supports in the school system that they need in order to help the students. We also have a learning collaborative, which is a more intimate group of mental health providers and school districts coming together to really talk through, discuss problems that they're seeing on their campus, to build relationships with providers so that they can establish referral pathways for easy access and increased access to mental health, for mental health services. And they also provide educational presentations to increase knowledge around working with various populations. The collaborative also provides guidance and recommendations to school districts to understand what the needs are, understand what's happening in regards to mental health among youth. We have providers that will come and provide updates, share data, and discuss policies that are related to supporting school districts, discuss diagnoses and various assessments that can also be used to identify and help to meet the needs of those students experiencing mental illness. School districts are working very hard to meet the needs of students. There are various persons in the school district that allow for points of contact. So some school districts may have a school counselor. School counselors provide all services to the student, the family. They work with the teacher in the classroom to really understand what the needs of the students are. Some school districts have school counselors and school psychologists, where school psychologists and psychiatrists are able to screen students, provide assessments on campus, and make appropriate referrals for services. Some school districts also partner with clinics, so they have co-located medical health clinics that have the ability to meet both the physical medical needs as well as the mental and behavioral health needs of students. So we encourage parents to reach out to the school district and see what services your school provides your student. Many times the mental health director there may work under social emotional learning, or it may be an overall umbrella of support for students. But check into that. Oftentimes there are readily available services that will help your student thrive. The center also offers grants to districts around the greater Houston area. One of our grant awardees is working on an equity audit and working to build an equity statement to understand the disparities that are existing among students, racial disparities that are existing among students in the campus when it comes to achievement and receiving mental health supports. And we have another district that we're funding that is building a social emotional learning squad, and they are ensuring that professional development reaches all of the administration, educators, and adults that within the school district that touch students. This is a really great model because it provides everyone with the understanding, the language, and the ability to identify, recognize, and refer when needed. So my research in adverse childhood experiences in youth, in middle and high school youth, really serves to add to the literature about what we need to do as a system and as adults, as educators, and as parents to really understand the experience of children and how that impacts their adult life. We also want to intervene early. early intervention is so important. We know that many students that have mental illness often become adults that have mental illness. And so if we are able to prevent or intervene early, we are able to change the trajectory of a youth who may be experiencing mental illness and that may be progressing to suicidal ideation.
Hi, my name is Dr. Raymond Cho, and I'm a professor of psychiatry at the Baylor College of Medicine and also president and medical director of Houston Mind and Brain. We focus on things such as depression, OCD, cognitive impairments, and other serious mental illnesses that cause some significant impact on people's lives. Some non-medication therapies are available in the form of brain stimulation. So instead of taking a pill every day, one can receive stimulation in various forms in a non-invasive way. So there's nothing probing the brain physically, but these therapies can be highly effective. And one of those therapies is called transcranial magnetic stimulation. So that's a mouthful. So people call it just TMS for short, transcranial magnetic stimulation, TMS. And that refers to a form of therapeutic for the brain that involves magnetic fields that are applied transcranially. That means through your scalp and skull and directed at various brain targets. And what's remarkable is that this therapy can be extremely helpful for things such as depression and OCD, and even more recently, it's been found to be effective for things like stopping smoking habits. And all these three indications that I just mentioned, depression, OCD, and smoking cessation, have actually been approved by the FDA. So just like the FDA thoroughly reviews and approves new medications, the FDA is also a body that reviews device-related therapeutics, including TMS. So this therapy has been actually around for quite some time, and I think it's a very unfortunate tragedy that so many people don't even know about this really effective therapy. Of course, everybody knows about medications, and just to give an example, with depression, many depressed patients have gone through multiple medications, sometimes having to be hospitalized, sometimes with very severe life circumstances, such as considering or attempting suicide. But all they've been tried on is a series of medications that either due to inefficacy, not being effective for the depressive episode, or not being able to tolerate the medication due to a number of different side effects. There's a loss of hope at the end of that road because of this ignorance of other alternatives, such as TMS. This is what the TMS device actually looks like. So depending on what specific type of device manufacturer, it may look a little bit different, but this particular device is made by BrainsWave, and the patient sits in this comfortable chair, and these different helmets, one is blue, one is yellow, have different purposes, although they look very similar except for the color. The blue one, within the helmet, there's a coil that the way it's configured will target the left dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. That's a front left part of the brain, and that's a very critical site to target for the treatment of depression. The yellow helmet, on the other hand, is a, quote, OCD helmet, because the coils within this helmet target it's still the front part of the brain, but more in the midline section. and that brain area is very critical for the treatment of depression. So as you can see, there's a little head strap here. The patient will put on the helmet and we strap them in so that it fits snugly. Magnetic fields are, what's actually administered is fairly strong, but they also weaken very quickly. So unless the helmet is on fairly snugly, the patient may not be getting the full therapeutic effect of the magnetic pulses. So the basic procedure involves putting on the helmet. The first session will determine exactly where that helmet should be and how strongly the stimulation should be for that particular person. And then they sit in this chair wearing the helmet, and typical treatment lasts about 20 minutes.
I think some of the things that we see are, we always want to try to be ourselves, and society always tells us to be ourselves, but then once we actually try and branch out and figure out who we really are, we get shut down by society. And so to have someone tell us one thing and then for them to tell us another doesn't really...
Can you give an example on that?
An example I could probably give is someone trying to dress a certain way because they're feeling that that's who they really are, and society helps push them towards that idea of wanting to do that, but then as soon as they actually do it and embrace themselves, they get ridiculed for it. I mean, you know, we're all kind of putting on a face to please everyone else around school and be happy and all this, but they don't really see what's going on inside. And all of the pressure that school and all of our relationships put on us, like, you just have to put on a mask and show everyone that you're happy, but you're really not. Holding everything in is only going to make everything worse. And not being able to talk to someone about it, not having someone to be able to talk to about it, is just going to make everything worse for you. The saying, it's all right to not be all right, has kind of come around a lot more in the almost recent months. And so people are just starting to realize, like, hey, if I'm not okay, I'm not okay, and that's perfectly fine. There's a lot of good and bad things about social media. And I read the other day, fake news travels 6 times faster than real news. So every 6 people that find out about fake news, 1 person knows what's actually happening. And I think that's one definitely like a bad thing about social media. But I mean, there are a lot of good things. I mean, people can get their name out there. People can finally show what they can do. Like artists have it big in social media right now. But also I just think it's hard because, like, there's cyberbullying, there's this, there's that, and so there's a lot of benefits to social media. But at the same time, for my age group, there's a lot of just really bad things that can go on. I just think that being able to be someone that someone can talk to is one of the most important things you can do, because if you can have someone come and talk to you willingly and wanting to talk to you, being able to kind of reassure them that everything's going to get better and everything is going to work out eventually brings them hope too, and then hopefully they can transfer that to other people if someone comes and talks to them. And so being able to help other people and watch them get better because of you is one of the best feelings.
Hi, my name is Rachel Eddins, and I'm the Executive Director and a licensed professional counselor with Eddins Counseling Group in Houston, Texas. At our center, we serve anywhere from children to adults ages 3 and above. We work with teens, we work with young adults, we work with families, couples, and adults struggling with a wide variety of mental health related concerns, career concerns, or just life transitions. Today I want to talk with you a little bit about DBT. And DBT is a type of therapy, and I want to explain a little bit more about how it works and who it is a good fit for. DBT is one of the types of therapy that we offer here at our center at Eddins Counseling Group. So DBT, it stands for Dialectical Behavioral Therapy. Those are big words, but in the nutshell, DBT was really developed to help people cope with overwhelming emotions. We've all experienced overwhelming emotions at some point in our life, But when that happens on a more regular basis, it can become very difficult to live with. And we may develop behaviors or ways of coping with those overwhelming emotions that are no longer helpful or what we call adaptive for our life. That's where DBT comes into play. DBT is about teaching us new skills to cope with those overwhelming emotions so that they become more manageable. I like to think of it as emotions as waves. We experience emotions in our body, and they are very much like waves. They come and go. So if you can imagine that you're in a boat and very strong waves are crashing against your boat, you can't really just stop the waves, right? So we can't really just stop our emotions from happening. And when we do try to stop them or make them go away, it actually makes them worse. Instead, what we want to learn how to do is be the captain of that ship. To learn how to navigate those strong waves, that storm, the heavy seas, or whatever you want to think about that as, to be able to navigate that with effective skills and strategies to get through to the other side. Because one thing we know about waves is they come and they go. So if the time that we're experiencing right now is intense, that intensity will go. It will change. What we have to do is learn how to hold on in the meantime with the various skills that we have so that it doesn't get worse, so to speak, right? So I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. For everybody, it's different. And that's the important thing, is that regardless of where it comes from, the perspective is that we're here in the present moment right now, and it's important that we learn skills and find ways to solve the problem of what we're experiencing right now. So DBT is very much focused on skills development. You're going to learn practical strategies to cope with difficult thoughts, difficult feelings, regardless of where they come from. So the focus is on skills building, problem solving, and not judgment or blame or going back into the past. We're really focusing on the present moment. So in terms of what might cause some of these symptoms that we experience with difficult thoughts or feelings, that's, for some people, it's just genetic. You might have felt that you were just born that way, that you were a little bit different, and maybe found yourself crying in movies when others weren't, or feeling kind of like at the edge of your skin, almost like you were, or maybe riding on a roller coaster, maybe feeling like your life is a roller coaster, that things are just experienced more intensely than your friends or your family members. So the point is that it's not your fault, and you're doing the best you can with what you have. That's a really important philosophy that is part of DBT. And you can also learn to change and build skills to cope differently.
My name is Dr. Gregory A. Hudnall, and I'm the Executive Director, founder of Hope Squad, school-based peer-to-peer program that started in Provo, Utah, in Provo City School District. I was a high school principal that lost a few students to suicide. I actually spoke at some of their funerals, and then I had an amazing experience where I was contacted by the Provo police to come down and identify the body of a 14-year-old who had taken his life, and actually had to move the body to identify him. And when I got done, I walked to my car and I literally threw up and sobbed. And I can remember sitting in that car being so angry. I was angry at myself because, once again, I lost another person on my watch. I was angry at the young man because he was a great kid and had so much future potential. And then I was just angry at life. Why would someone ever think about taking their life? So I made a vow that I would do everything I could to help prevent suicide. The next year I was promoted to the district office, started working with the community, and we started training adults. We figured if we were going to turn the tide with suicide, we wanted to train the parents and the adults in the community. We spent 2 or 3 years doing that, trained about 5,000 people, the mayor, city council, other people. And then we had a young man walk into Provo High School, take his watch off, give it to his best friend, said, I'm not going to need this after tomorrow. Then went on to tell 5 other friends that he was going to take his life. and not one of those friends told an adult, and the next day he died by suicide. So we as a group really realized that if we were going to really do something about suicide prevention, it had to start with the kids, because kids talk to kids. So we spent a year researching every program around the world, looking at the data, and the data showed us 7 out of 10 young people before they take their lives will tell a friend, and that friend will never tell an adult, right? And it's not their friend's fault. They don't know what to do. Sometimes they've heard it before. And so we figured that we wanted to focus on the young people. So we spent months putting together ideas and different things, and then we decided if we were going to go into a school, we wanted to start at ground zero, Timpview High School. So our team went into Timpview High School, which is right next to Brigham Young University, high-end demographics. And it was our school at the time that had more threats, more attempts, more suicides than any other school. And they went through every English class asking every student, if you were struggling emotionally and needed to talk to someone, list the names of 3 of the peers that you would feel comfortable going to. And the most amazing thing happened. The same 40 names rose to the top out of 2,100. We pulled those 40 kids out, started training them on how to recognize signs, how to talk to peers, and when to go to an adult. And they became the eyes and ears of that school. And the program was so successful, we put it in every school. 13 elementary schools, 3 middle schools, 3 high schools. State of Utah, unfortunately at that time, had been in the top 10 for suicide for over 10 years. And in my own district, we were averaging 1 to 2 suicides a year. If you had gone the previous 12 years, you'd see 1 or 2 suicides every year, including the loss of a 4th grader. And after we put the Hope Squad program together district-wide in every school, we went 9 years without a suicide. And that's when we knew that we were going to start changing the tide. It's been amazing to see these amazing young people and these wonderful advisors who are making a difference. These Hope Squad members every single day get out of bed thinking, who can I help today? When you're around them, they just, the world's going to be a better place because of these young people. We were in the Hope Squad in Pleasant Grove, and the young person said something about the fact that we as a generation are willing to talk about it. See, we're not. Our generation, we're afraid to talk about it because we think if we talk about it, it's going to give someone the idea. When in reality, young people don't want to die. They want the pain to go away, but they don't know how to make that pain go away. And when you add impulsivity, you add that prefrontal cortex is not fully developed, and they have that crisis in their life, there's an emotional response to make that pain go away. And unfortunately, that's where we see so many young people attempt, and then unfortunately, those that take their lives. So Hope Squad is a program that is in elementary school, 4th, 5th, and 6th. It's in middle school, 3 years, and it's in high school, 4 years. The elementary program is set up so that it focuses on anti-bullying. 12 to 14% of young people who take their lives are kids that have been bullied. And then we focus on resiliency and then mental wellness. And then in the middle school, we start talking more about the mental health challenges and how to help kids recognize signs and reach out and talk to their peers and then have the courage to go to an adult. I think one of the things that I love most about the Hope Squad is the young people. Over 5,000 kids referred for help and over 1,000 hospitalized just because a Hope Squad member had the courage to reach out to another young person. I was on a hot date with my wife at 31 Flavors Ice Cream, and a gentleman walked up and he goes, "You're the suicide guy." And I thought, I coached my son's baseball team. I was a high school principal. I was on the city council. I've done a lot of things. But of all the things I think that I feel that is going to have the biggest impact in society, no doubt is the Hope Squad. And when I visited with him, I said, "Why do you say that?" And he said, "Well, because my daughter was on the Hope Squad at Timpview, and she loved being on it. And every time she got a new lesson, she would come home, make the family sit around her, and she would teach them the concepts that they were learning." And then he said, fast forward 2 years. My daughter's gone out of state to college, and my wife and I were in the kitchen preparing dinner, and we could hear our 14-year-old son talking to a best friend on the phone who was suicidal. And he was using everything that his sister had taught him. And he said, you know you're making a difference when the other family members are picking it up, because now it just goes out like that. You know, if you ever want to know more about a Hope Squad, or if you're interested, please reach out to our website, hopesquad.com, and let us know, and we'll be glad to answer your questions. Go Cougars, BYU #1.
My name is Cassie Farley, and I'm the Hope Squad advisor at Pleasant Grove High School in Utah. And this is my 3rd year teaching Hope Squad. It's my favorite class at the school to teach. Hope Squad is a peer-to-peer suicide prevention class. So we have about 40 kids in the class, and we poll all the kids in the school, if you are struggling, who's somebody you would feel comfortable talking to. And then we take the top 30 to 40 names of those kids and we put them in this class, and we teach them about suicide prevention. We teach these kids how to be the eyes and the ears of our school. The Hope Squad kids teach me how to not be judgmental, how to love everyone, they're just so accepting. The Hope Squad kids are so accepting of everyone in our school. We want all of the students at Pleasant Grove High School to feel seen and heard when they're here at school. So we teach these kids, always reach out, always learn kids' names in your class. Try to make a difference with everyone you see passing in the halls, kids you're sitting by. So we hope to make it so everyone feels seen when they walk through the doors of our school. Even if kids are having a hard time, I want these kids to know you can always find hope. Always, even if times are super hard. So also at the beginning of class, I have them fill out a gratitude journal and write down 3 things they're grateful for every single day at the beginning of class. Because if you're looking for the good in life, you tend to focus on what you're thinking about. Kids are willing to listen to their peers. So if these kids, the Hope Squad kids, are passionate about mental illness, then they can spread that to their peers. So they'll go throughout the school and teach classes, and then we have activities downstairs. We'll sometimes paint semicolons on the kids' wrists to remind them to keep going. We've brought service animals in before. We play 9 square, all sorts of different activities downstairs, just to bring kids together and help kids feel comfortable, help kids to know that it's okay to talk about mental illness. And just last week, I had a mom come into our school, and she said, my son that's serving an LDS mission wanted me to come and tell you how grateful he is that he could be on Hope Squad, how much it's helped him right now as he's serving in a different country. He not only gets to help his companions that he's serving his mission with, but the people that he's teaching out in the field. And then also, there's such a neat feeling in this classroom. When you walk in with these Hope Squad kids, these are special kids. And it brings kids from every group. We have football players, dancers, kids in band, choir, drama, a bunch of different kids from all over the school, but they're so close. I love that. I love that they're all close and they care about each other. And I just think from one person, Mr. Greg Hudnall, that comes up with this idea to start a suicide prevention class in school. These kids, it's changed lives. Like, they have a group, they feel connected, they've found their place in our school, and they're making a huge difference. And that makes me so happy that I get to be part of that. There are many times that kids have been on the verge of attempting suicide, and because one of these kids have heard or seen something, either as they're sitting in class or on social media, they'll turn in their names and we can get these kids the help they need. I just think these kids are going to be educated and make a difference and help others to know it's okay to talk about this. We're getting rid of the stigma that goes along with mental health. So it's just going to keep going, don't you think, for generations and generations? And I love that.
So be hope. COVID-19 has impacted the way we do education. With online school, what we've been observing is students feeling more isolated, more learning loss, also growing disparities and a lot more social and emotional needs. A lot of our students are using a phone, and also a lot of our students don't have computers. We used to work and keep working in Title I schools, which are low-income communities. In low-income communities, and most of the kids, a lot of them don't have a computer, but they have a phone. So we wanted, with the team, and when I'm talking about the team, I'm talking about a group of fellow Rotarians and psychologists, educators, and also high school students to create an app that would respond to the needs of our students. So what we did a needs survey to understand what were their needs. And through this needs survey, we got a lot of information to start building something that should respond to these needs. So the Be Hope app is really an invitation to create and spread hope by learning the skills. So this is something that is very special about the app. You have a part where you see and you learn social and emotional skills through interactive activities, quizzes and questions and videos and prompts, and also journaling, articles. So this is really, really thorough. And you also have a part about how to address the mental health and the safety needs of our students with this online world we live in. And so we partner with the Texas Child Mental Health Care Consortium and Unbound to create these components on the app. Very, very special. Another thing also we are bringing with the app is a community space where our students can connect as a community in a positive way with an Instagram-like feed, and also connect with the community to create projects, to do workshops together, and also to do workshops with their parents, with their teachers, with their friends, and create projects that will impact the community. Be Hope is a respectful place where your voice can be heard. It's a joyful place also when you can learn new skills and share insights with others. It's a peaceful place where you can rest, we can relax, and also you can release your challenges. And lastly, it's a nurturing place where you can connect as a community and we can find the resources and support that you need. So Be Hope, it's a place for all of us, youth, parents, children, students, teachers, educators, to create a change, a positive change in our lives, and build relationships, build bridges, and look out for each other and support each other. So Be Hope is a space for all of us to grow together and to create a better world and have fun. Thank you.
I think about 5th grade, or my anxiety and depression started at about 5th grade. Anxiety mostly in like 6th grade. That's when I started having the panic attacks that I have. So at least how my therapist describes it is my panic attacks are like seizure-like. Like it's really hard because I would go to school and every day I'd be having a panic attack. So I'd be sent home and it was hard to get like an education while going through all of that, and maintaining friends is hard because it's like you're having a medical emergency every 2 seconds.
Mm-hmm. And very uncomfortable feeling, I assume.
Yeah.
Right. And did your friends kind of judge you a little bit too, or did you feel like that at all?
I think the friends I had before judged me, but then I found like a group that didn't judge me for the panic attacks. They actually supported me through those. I think the depression started just because I never really had like a safe space growing up. Before my parents got divorced, my dad was here all the time, and he didn't really particularly like me. So that was a big thing when I wasn't getting support at home because of that. And then I was going to school and I felt like I wasn't getting any support from my friends or anything like that. 8th grade, there was I was sexually assaulted by my best friend, and I didn't know how to tell people. So he just spread around rumors that it was like consensual and like I was doing all this stuff with him. And that's kind of when like I lost my entire friend group, and then that's kind of when the suicidal ideation started. So my second year of high school, I think I had 3 suicide attempts in 1 year. I go to the University of Houston. I'm an exploratory studies major. I work as an ambassador for the University of Houston and as a Cub Camp counselor. So right now I feel like everything is going really good. I'm still in therapy. I feel like I'm probably going to be in therapy for the rest of my life. I don't feel like that's a bad thing. So I think it's hard for most people to like admit that there's something wrong. For me, it was kind of easy because I was asking for help for a long time. So when I finally got help, I was like, thank God. But I think like people need to be more open about it. There are a lot of times, like, because I was in the hospital so many times and things like that, there are a lot of instances of people just not wanting help or thinking that like help, like this isn't gonna help them. And things only get better when you try to get them better. Like it's your responsibility to like work at it.
What happens?
I think the strongest people get therapy. I think it's a weak mindset to think that therapy is terrible. It's like no one is super emotionally strong unless they're in therapy and know how to deal with these emotions. So I felt like I wanted to get help and that I wasn't getting it, and that there was no hope because I'm not going to get the help that I need. And because I was reaching out to like counselors at school, like I was literally like during school making jokes about killing myself and like saying that I was going to, and like no one took me seriously until like finally like the car thing happened with where my boyfriend at the time started beating me up in the car. And then people were finally like, oh, she does need help. Like it's really awful that it takes like this catastrophic event for people to take you seriously. Like you get all of these lists in high school, right? About like, oh, someone's gonna give all their possessions away and they're gonna do this and they're gonna do that. But if you know someone and you're like, they're not doing this, but they're not acting the way that they usually do, and they're acting really sad, like check up on them. It's not always like they're giving away their possessions and they're isolating themselves. Sometimes they are like, I think I joked about it to kind of minimize the severity in my head. Like it's not that big of a deal. Like it's just like, it'll affect me and only me because I'm making all these jokes and no one really cares, so.
Hi, I'm Lisa Sullivan. I'm Executive Director of the Texas Suicide Prevention Collaborative, and we really appreciate the opportunity to visit with you today about our important work. The Texas Suicide Prevention Collaborative, our piece of this puzzle is to help ensure that the communities in Texas have the resources they need to create a suicide-safer environment for their community members. And this started back in 2001 with the Governor's Trauma Advisory Council, who brought together a team to respond to the U.S. Surgeon General's call for action for suicide prevention. This created that public-private partnership that is so critical in effective public health suicide prevention. And through the years, this council has grown into a 501c3 dedicated to this purpose. A couple of things that are really important to realize is just kind of how this helps Texas communities. And I know we're a big energy state, and so I think of it as a pipeline. The collaborative's role is to serve as that pipeline that connects not only to national and state and international resources throughout our local communities, but then also connect those local communities together. By having that pipeline to distribute effective and evidence-based suicide prevention practices and programs and resources, we're able to get that information into the hands of local communities much faster by having this kind of clearinghouse approach and the technical assistance that goes on to support that. One of the questions I sometimes get is, why are communities so important to the conversation around suicide prevention? Why aren't we just talking about healthcare systems or crisis lines? And the answer to that is a couple-fold. One is, Texans live in communities. This is the place where we can intercept most people who might be at risk. Crisis lines just aren't enough to serve in that capacity to reach individuals that may be struggling with a mental health condition or suicide. Communities and everyone that's part of a community, whether that's a school, law enforcement, librarians, barbers, hair salons, we all have a role to play in that. So that community fabric, that tapestry that is woven by the interaction of these pieces of our community is essential to moving suicide prevention forward. This includes equipping each community member, regardless of what role that they are playing, to be able to respond and identify someone at risk and connect them to care. And then work beyond that depending on your role in your community member. So one of the things that I think about this is CPR. So let's talk about this for just a minute. If you were to have a heart attack, which city would be the most likely to survive you would be most likely to survive a heart attack? Is it Houston or Dallas or Miami or Los Angeles? The answer to that question is Seattle. And the reason why is Seattle has the most residents per capita that have been trained in CPR than any other city in the country. The time you are most likely to die from a heart attack is before you get to the hospital. So think of suicide prevention in the same way. The better equipped our communities are by everyone looking out for their neighbors and their family and their friends, and they know the warning signs and they know the risk factors and they know how to connect to care, this is where this community element becomes so vitally important. So that kind of brings us to why the pipeline is so essential. And when you look at the work that's happening at the national, the state, and the international level, all of that good work isn't going to make a difference if we cannot get it into the hands of our local communities to be able to implement that properly. So we want to be sure that we have that capability to drive those evidence-based practices deeper and farther across our state so that we can be sure to have our communities as equipped as possible for suicide prevention. And this is where the Texas Suicide Prevention Collaborative comes in. We work together with our stakeholders through a network of 35 local coalitions, nearly 40 statewide partners, 25 military veteran community members, member organizations, and 10 or 11 higher education institutions that all come together. And what I'd like to say is we get everybody in the boat rowing in the same direction, moving our state forward to becoming a suicide-safer state. So having these partners all working efficiently and effectively, and most importantly, collectively and collaboratively across our state is going to give us better outcomes over time than everybody going it alone in their own direction, in their own way. So this is one of the ways that we're able to contribute to a suicide-safer Texas. So our 4 or 5 main areas that we focus on is we really try to catalyze the use of those evidence-based practices, being sure that community partners are aware of and have access to things that are research-based, tools and resources and trainings that are research-based for effectiveness and safety in the construct of suicide prevention. We implement learning communities, and this is where we bring all these local coalitions together so that we can learn from each other and to help lift everyone as we work together. We mobilize Texans across the state for this implementation and for practical and achievable solutions to work in our communities across Texas, because we realize one size doesn't fit all. Communities have to prioritize what their particular community needs are and work within the resource constraints that their organization or their community may have as they work forward. We know, for example, from our data, from our local coalitions, about 40% of our local coalitions are utilizing the Texas State Plan for Suicide Prevention and designing their implementation plans. But we also know only 19% are using the CDC's technical package that's designed specifically for communities. So our job is to help them get access to that and learn how to apply that for their local communities. In fact, 3 out of 4 organizations that responded to our survey were either did not know about it at all or were only slightly familiar with this vital resource. So we really want to be sure, and this is where the pipeline becomes so critically important. It's a way to drive resources, proactively reach out to our local communities, and to be sure that the information is getting where it can be of most value and have the most benefit. So some of the things that we work on are examples of the work that we provide for our local coalitions and statewide partners are an easy-to-use toolkit. This is one of the questions that we get all the time is for how to work. How do we do something? How do we design a prevention program? How do we design postvention? How do we design an intervention strategies? So we develop easy-to-use toolkits so that communities can walk themselves through this process of designing their systems. Another piece that we really play a strong role in Texas is training. So we think about training the way nutritionists think about food. Fresh is better than frozen is better than canned. We look at training in that same lens. In-person training is highly effective and supportive. We know about 1 in 3 attendees who come to our trainings have some form of lived experience. So that in-person training is so important for creating that connectivity and that spirit of collaboration as we all work together to build that community framework. If that's not available, online training is also a great resource. Online training for us, we have trained nearly 60,000 Texans in suicide prevention gatekeeper skills. The most prominent audience for that are K-12 educators. We provide this training for free, and we're very excited to be able to offer that throughout our state. And both of those options are much better than going it alone or trying to figure it out by yourself. So we really strive to provide training solutions that make sense for local communities and community partners. We also serve as a resource hub for the state. At texassuicideprevention.org, we have resources for local coalitions and for statewide partners. We provide resources and fact sheets and public service announcement videos, training documents, statute review. All of that work is done and centralized at texassuicideprevention.org. So please reach out there if you have some time. Another piece of our puzzle is outreach and communications. So one of the things that we really strive for here is to help reduce stigma. This is one of the highest priorities for local coalition. How do we reduce stigma relative to suicide prevention so that Texans aren't reluctant to reach out for help? And then finally, we work with these learning collaboratives. We sponsor monthly meetings to bring all of our local coalitions together to learn collectively from timely topics that we work to move forward. So how can you help? First, support your local coalition. 75% of local coalitions do not receive any funding. This means they are bootstrapping their way to evidence-based processes and practices to help make their community suicide safer. Donate, volunteer your time, engage in your local suicide prevention coalition so that community collective effort can be more efficient and more effective, and to help local community members that may be struggling with a mental health condition get the services and support services they need. Another way to help is to support the Texas Suicide Prevention Collaborative through either donating or volunteering with our organization. It helps us to reach more Texas communities, to build new coalitions across the state where we might not have a presence yet, and to work towards helping to ensure suicide prevention reaches every Texan where they are in their local community. And finally, I would just like to close with just an analogy that I hold in my mind when I think about suicide prevention. I'm wearing a brooch today that is a mosaic. And that, to me, that symbolizes a lot of different things that correlates to suicide prevention. First, mosaics are composed of a lot of small pieces that come together to create something beautiful. What we're trying to do here is to bring all those pieces of a community together to be sure that we're able to create that one image of a suicide-safer community that keeps everyone in that community safer. Jody Crone is the artist that makes this brooch, and her group is called Broken But Beautiful. Beauty can come from all of these pieces working together, and that's what we would like to see happen across Texas.
Just a reminder to young students out there and families that schools serve as a great place to seek additional assistance. Sometimes as a family you feel that problems that occur outside of the school setting, you have to tackle those alone, but schools have great resources. They form partnerships with outside counseling agencies. They are constantly training their staff on mental health and how to support students. Some of the resources we have that a lot of our families even today don't know about, but we try to encourage them to use. On the back of every student ID, we have a crisis hotline that our district provides that's staffed with a mental health professional that a family can speak to 24/7. We also have a reporting app that's anonymous that not only students can report concerns about themselves, mental health concerns about peers, about their teachers, anyone in our community can report a concern on that app. And so we actually, as school settings, can't even keep up with the resources that are available. You just have to have that partnership. And so the biggest recommendation is never feel that you're struggling alone. Talk to your school. You know, the issues that families face, oftentimes there's a lot of stigma and shame to those concerns. And keep in mind that mental health professionals that are licensed, teachers, we all have confidentiality that we have to protect for families. So when you take that first step and you get help for yourself or your child, keep in mind that that doesn't get blasted out to the school community. That is protected and honored so that you can get the help that you need. Really, we often have this conversation. You have to start with a need to recognize there's a problem, but I think as educators, we're natural helpers. We come to the table wanting to educate students, and I think as more time passes and there's more societal demands and family structures change and what education looks like, as that evolves, we know that students cannot learn if they're not in an emotionally healthy place to learn. And so we've changed our mindset from education is the academics first. We now know that you have to be in an emotionally healthy, stable place to even begin to take in the academics. Social emotional learning, yes. Even here in the Houston area, we have leadership networks. We have the Center for School Behavioral Health that is given to us as a resource to schools to help us understand about different partnerships, understand what are the best evidence-based practices out there that exist to help our students. So I would encourage you that no school system has to operate in isolation. The resources are out there. You just have to operate from a place of understanding that there's a need and wanting to do something about that need. We have a family support center, and it is staffed after hours by our licensed mental professionals here in our district. So that is comprised of our interns, our school psychologists, our counselors, and so all the access families get is a student is identified from their campus and referred. So while the student may not have a family issue appear in the classroom setting, we just simply make the referral. So a student can be referred, and what we work on at that family counseling center is what the family wants to work on. So that could be a divorce, it could be a medical diagnosis that a family member recently received. So while school is the entry point to receive the family counseling, what we work on with the family, it's 6 weeks, solution focused. And it's used as that gap between connecting to a private therapist. We know that the waits are long, and so we want to support our families while they wait for that outside appointment. So whatever the family wants to work on, that's what we honor and help them with. Simultaneously, we provide family counseling and family training, and as well as child care at times if the family needs that while they're getting services.
Hello, my name is Frank Muniz. I'm a police officer with Acadia Independent School District Police Department. I've been a police officer for 26 years, and I've spent the last 13 years in the mental health field. I recently became a full-time dedicated mental health police officer to this team, the mental health intervention team here at KDISD, and I never thought in a million years that my career would take this turn and become a mental health officer. And I'm very proud of that achievement, that fact, because we're providing a tremendous amount of help to our student, our staff, and our population here in Cade.
And I'm Imran Mani. I'm also working with KDISD Police Department. I've been with the mental health unit for a year. There's 4 of us that do it, 2 of us are full-time. I've been in law enforcement 15 years, and I've been with the school district 8. And just, mental health is a passion that we both like. We love getting along, talking to families, and introducing what kind of resources we have for families and students combined.
So that's been a tremendous blessing for us to have that opportunity to reach out to people in crisis. And we didn't know how many people would actually need this type of help until the team came together and was made official. And it was pretty overwhelming and encouraging at the same time how we were able to provide help and assistance to people in crisis. And we hit the ground running from day one. The call volume has been steady, and the calls range from every conceivable issue that you can imagine, and it's very rewarding to be able to have the support behind us with the district, with the school psychologists, with the social workers, the entire team as a whole, the component, the things we can do, the creative avenues and solutions we've come up with to address problems and to help people and to listen to people and to validate them and let them know that it's okay not to be okay, and let them know that it's that they're supported and there's somebody listening to them.